Hi.
Yeah, hi. Can you go and find Jackie and put her in our room?
Yes.
And Erica.
I can't find them.
Okay. Jackie Shaw.
Jackie. I can't find in the participants.
Yeah, she says she doesn't know which one she's in.
Maybe she's in another one.
She's in the main room.
Jacqueline Show. Okay. And Erica. Let me see if I can find her.
Ah, there we go. Hi, everybody. Hi, Jackie. I don't know where Erica is, but we have limited time, so we will just start the discussion. Everybody, welcome to preservation of and co-creation of indigenous textile techniques and ancestral knowledge as a pathway to equity and inclusivity in the creative industries and education. So today I am the host, Tricia Langman. I am an educator on HR Nosotros partner and collaborator, and we also have Costanza. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, absolutely. Hi, my name is Costanza. Oh, can you see me? Okay. Hi, my name is Costanza, and I'm collaborating with Hechos por Nosotros. I graduated this winter in sustainable fashion. I got a master's degree here in New York City. I'm very passionate about materials, circular economy, and synergies between industry. So now I'm trying to study all the materials, and I'm working with this company that provides sustainable materials to brands, to fashion companies. Thank you.
Thanks. So we have Jackie Shaw, the amazing Jackie Shaw, who's very tired and is in England and UK and is still with us. Thank you, Jackie.
Hi, everybody. Jacqueline Shaw, the founder director of Africa Fashion Guide, author of the book Fashion Africa, and the new B2B platform, sourcing platform, the Fashion Africa Trade Expo. And what I do is help fashion entrepreneurs, fashion brands to start, build or source fashion made in Africa, and to do it in a way that's ethical and sustainable, to help to build the economy in Africa back up again, using the fashion industry as a vehicle.
Thank you. And we do have Erica de Grief. She's meant to be joining us. Costanza's busy trying to find where she is. It's a little confusing, but we will get started on the questions anyway. So firstly, how do we preserve ancestral techniques like weaving and dyeing to maintain harmony with nature? Creative enterprises in the global south often feel the need to create and feel the need to scale and walk towards traditional business models and cycles. So many of the younger generations migrate to cities. So how do we incentivize rural indigenous communities to preserve knowledge, maintain the slower production methods? You know, there is a digital revolution coming out at the same time. So how do we, balance that, nature, ancestral knowledge with, the digital revolution, digital transformation that's going on in textiles and fashion? And I'm going to hand that to you, Jackie.
What I'm seeing today is that, first of all, there's a big movement back towards wellness, towards doing things ethically, doing things the natural way. A lot of people want to be, eating superfoods, putting the right type of things on their skin to stay healthy. And the same for fashion. There's been a lot of, a movement towards storytelling about who made my clothes, to all of that stuff, to going back to doing things in a way that is sustainable and ethical and considerate. And I think that what I'm seeing now is, from a digital perspective, is actually working alongside that. There's ways to, like, using 3D technology. It actually means that you don't have to keep doing sampling and the traditional way, or do production and having loads of mistakes. You can actually do things, sample product, make product in a way that is using less waste, that is more precise, and so it makes your work actually more effective. And the same technology to create new fabrics from, things you might not think of. I mean, we've heard about mushroom leather, we've heard about sea cell, we hear about spider web, silk, and things like that. And these technologies are helping to bring changes to connecting with the craft industry to bring a new way of doing things. I think that's really a positive way forward.
Yeah, I mean, I really feel that the sort of zero waste technology that's out there is really, really helping, and can work in tandem with some of the ancestral techniques that are out there as well at the same time. I think that preserving, they can both work together. So I mean, just want to talk a little bit about how do we start to reintroduce these slower, often natural, sustainable techniques back into creative and urban-centered fashion communities and cities that have Indigenous heritages? What kind of responsibility should creative educational institutions take to help with preservation? I mean, is it the responsibility of educational institutions to train people to know that they can see both? Or and then also, how does colonialism factor into this discussion as well? I mean, that's a big discussion, but yeah, but really, that's still steeped in education. What's the responsibility of the creative educational institutions here in terms of preservation and technology working together?
I think it's about appreciating, that these are human beings, number one.
Yeah.
And it's all about ownership. I was at King's College University in London the other day. We talked over an African fashion kind of discussion with all different types of experts there in the room. And one of the things we were talking about was this whole thing about ownership, about respecting that it's what belongs to somebody else, and not going in with a different mentality of how you should do this and you should do that. It's like, you step in and what can I learn from you, from what you are doing, and how could we combine our ways of doing things? I think it really is appreciating, recognizing, and you contributing maybe what you've learned and sharing or learning from what they have, and bringing that together like a marriage, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think there's so much within crafts these days, and so much within heritage. A lot of the work that I do with Africa, I've found even now that there's designers, maybe they've moved to the diaspora and from Africa to the diaspora, and they're tapping into their heritage, but it's about ownership. Like, this is my heritage. My grandmother wore this, my grandfather wore this, they wrap their fabric this way, they use this type of print or this woven cloth, but I'm going to introduce it into my collections that's going out to New York Fashion Week or London Fashion Week, wherever it may be, and bringing that to a new community to be able to celebrate their ownership, their heritage, but also to look at new ways they can bring it into the 21st century, into this new year, this new decade and season. So I think there's both the different types of perspectives on this, but it's really important that we do keep things from dying out. It'd be so sad to see so much of these crafts dying out because of just the way the West does things, for example, or fast fashion, etc.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when I go into a lot of educational institutions, they do have a sustainability center, but they also have a technology center, but they never have something that is around something ancestral and traditional. And so as we move forward, I feel like some things will be left behind, because some of those that ancestral knowledge is not being passed down because it's multi-generational, and we don't see that. And so what you're going to find is some things are just going to be lost, which is a real shame. So I think it's an opportunity now for places in the global south, like Africa and South America, where and Asia, where we can there needs to be some sort of intervention, to
I think
stop
it's
them.
documentation. That's one of the
Yeah,
things I was saying, because even though my parents are Jamaican, I'm British born to Jamaican parentage, and it's all about the oral histories, things they're spoken down through the generations, but it's not that you have, I've got loads of books, like a physical book about things. I had to find out about some of my heritage through conversations, speaking to people. My grandfather, when he died, that's when I went to talk to loads of people to learn about the people that he was from, the connection to Africa, all of this lineage. And I think if, documenting these, that's why, like I said, I was in this event where at King's Uni and all these PhD students. And what's the great thing is that they're doing these research for their heritage. They're documenting it. But I said, let's not just have it documented and just left at universities. Let's put it out there. When I've got my book now, but when I started, I created a book, and that was to document some of these stories, to document, about African fashion, contemporary African fashion, put it out there. That's something that we can do to working with those creators, those artisans, those makers in particular ABC country that we're going into, but working with them to document the history. I think that's really important.
So how important is co-creation? I mean, this word that's bandied about. Is it really something that can really help, or we can talk about it, but how, in a practical sense, does it really work? Educational institutions going into working with, I don't know, NGOs, or how do we get that connection?
I think it helps because it brings new market entry, new opportunities for sales. But it's a funny one, because I think co-creation is important to work with communities. Maybe there's a weaving technique, and then there's IKEA, a weaving technique in Guatemala, and then there's IKEA in Sweden or Europe, and then they're creating curtains from the woven textiles, or maybe not IKEA, but maybe more of a high-end furniture shop, for example. And they're working together. Somebody goes in, works with these weavers, they're creating products, hopefully paying the weavers well, and ordering production of this. And then so that's kind of introducing that to somebody in Europe, and is creating more work, more, keeping that tradition alive. But then in some ways, I also think that it can also be that there'll be designers. So I've worked as a designer for nearly 20 years, and the designers would see these items and then do their versions of. That's machine woven, for example, done by machinery or technology. And so, then if the price is cheaper, and then these said furniture stores or retailers will want to order the cheaper version, because they want to, it's all about the cost in the end. So sometimes I want to kind of keep things hidden. I'd rather that it's just hidden in those communities. But it's not the way of the world. The world is moving forward. But I think as part of that, like you said, we are going to lose a lot of heritage, of crafts, histories, which is really sad. So documenting them is going to kind of keep them alive in some way, through books, through video documentaries, even get it on Netflix documentary. That's where everybody can see it, isn't it? It'd be
Exactly.
great. All right, your own movies, but it needs to be documented so we keep some of it alive.
Yeah, we worked with a company called Metimet in Nigeria as part of our incubator.
Oh yes.
And she works with Wolves of Hyacinth, and she trains people. And one of the one of the goals of our incubator was to get her on the global stage. But there were so many barriers. Just we had to help with just the technology, updating her website and making that accessible, and all sorts of that. And I feel like for smaller businesses, social impact businesses that are around, that are trying to preserve things like that, there seems to be something missing in the middle to help them get to scale responsibly, but also something missing in terms of educating the consumer about this is where this came from.
You heard that phrase, a round peg in a square peg in a round hole.
Yes.
In some ways, you're trying to create something that's probably not a natural fit.
Yeah.
But we kind of want to support because it's like a new market entries, new opportunities for trade and sales and customers. And, you know, obviously more money, it builds economies, etc. But it kind of is not fitting because it's not meant to fit, or it's not the way they work, it's not meant to work in the way the so-called West works.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's
that's
just,
a really good point. Yeah. I mean,
that's what I wonder anyway.
Yeah. Well, no, because, you know, they're designed to be regional on a smaller scale, and the business models that we have, you know, the business cycle is you sort of scale one way, then you scale up and get bigger and bigger until you're just this massive company. I think that one of the things that I got from one of the Hechponosotros collaborators who worked in Peru and Argentina was that when she went to talk to some of the artists and the makers, they were content with not getting any bigger, you know, even though she went in there, they had actually said, well, you know, we're actually content with what we have. We're not interested in growing or scaling. This is something that we just do in our community, but obviously, you know, we don't have any younger people to kind of keep that going. So that's just one of the things that, you know, we can, you know, that I always think about. I mean, what do you think about high fashion? Because traditionally couture houses have used artisans to create spectacular and unique designs, selling it for thousands. And they use artisans and makers all the time. There's a great disparity in terms of, you know, where that prosperity is shared. So, you know, they may make it all there, but then it's sold outside. There's a big inequity, as it sometimes can be shocking in recent years. So micro businesses are trying to find a way to kind of price what they're doing in a way that kind of reflects the hours. But somehow it never seems to get there. It's almost like a designer comes in and then buys it and then sells it for loads, but they can't do that. I mean, how can they, you know, be part of the market in terms of pricing their products as well, you know, so that they can, you know, they can have some sort of, you know, space in the market.
I mean, it's unfortunate because a lot of it has got to do with hierarchy, isn't it? It's got to do with how they're viewed. It's like if this was done in Italy and it was a shoemaker, you know, they'll be charging or being paid a significant amount for this handmade quality, you know, finely finished, like getting a Birkin or something like that. Something that takes a lot of work to produce. It's not, the makers will get paid more for that than if they were doing it in, I don't know, somewhere like I said in Ethiopia, for example. You could do great bag making and things like that. But, you know, because it's done in Italy, it's seen as it's perception, and it's a bit of them and us, and it's a bigger issue than it's like
the perception of value, and I think that feeds into the whole colonialism, even in South America and in Asia. It's just like
the same
I
thing.
met a designer in China who works with Chinese artisans, and she was like, when she said things were made in China, it was like, oh my god, you know. But she said they had artisans, and this is such beautiful. She was using silk that was used that was only produced in certain seasons, you know, a very traditional way. They were using it a very sustainable way, in harmony with nature. But, you know, people still had that stigma because they didn't believe that because it was made in China that somehow it was of lesser value, that perception. And I think that's a perception that is kind of founded in the global north, you know, certainly on how, you know, how we perceive value of something that's laboured and artisanal. So something that's laboured and artisanal in Italy and France is more value than something that is in South America or Africa or Asia. And, you know, we've got to find a way to kind of change that. I wonder if you have anything to say about that, Sophie, because you studied business ethics, and it's just like interesting for me to see, to think about that. Are you there, Sophie?
Oh yeah, sorry, my Wi-Fi was just cutting out a little bit. Yeah, you said, yeah, I guess just to give my perspective, yeah, I'm doing an ESG consulting fellowship right now. And so, you know, it is interesting to see, you know, how different businesses go about dealing with the environment and the different disclosures and regulations they're using. But sorry, because my Wi-Fi was cutting out, I wasn't able to hear the whole.
Yeah. So we were literally just talking about the perception of value when we talk about different countries, like something being made in Italy and in France being perceived, if an artisan makes it there, you can sell it for more. But if you were perhaps in the global south, somewhere like Africa or Asia or South America, an artisan can make something, but the value is not perceived in the same way. And people who have ESG and they're thinking about ethics, and yet we still don't sit down and think about how we think about other countries and other people working. And so, with that's why we have people paid lower wages in other countries because of that perception. I think it's just that, to me, something that needs to be really addressed by all the creative industries. I've had a lot of conversation about, how the colonialism has influenced everybody's take on fashion and creatives. And I think like now it's beginning to change. Definitely, we're seeing a lot. Like Erica's not here today, but they're doing a lot of work I can see in Southern Africa, around that. And she, her and her colleague Jackie May have really made a concerted effort to, integrate sort of what's the culture of South Africans into their fashion weeks and all the fashion things that they do. We worked with so many amazing people. So I'm wondering if how we are doing for time, Costanza. We've got time for another question.
Yes, I think so.
Okay, yeah, because I said we had like 10 minutes, but okay. So just wanting to just piggybacking off what we just talked about in terms of perceived value of artisanal crafts and traditions. Just wanting to talk a little bit about, in general, about education for the 21st century going forward. What does that look like for the creative economy, for creatives? Jackie, do you want to answer that?
You know what? I think he's taken a lot of very new skills.
Yeah.
I mean, the way I did fashion, and for example, and the way I'm seeing fashion now is you have to have, a lot of technical skills. I'm not just talking about the technical skills that I, would have before, like in dressmaking. It's more about, the tools they use. Like I said, I was talking about the 3D tools, the AI, and being able to 3D design, and even for catwalks and things like that, to how you showcase your clothing. The even virtual reality as well, a lot of that.
Yeah.
So having that understanding to see things a bit more 3D, where I would have drawn flat. We would use Excel, we would use Illustrator, Photoshop, but it would still be quite 2D and quite flat. And now you have to kind of visualize things a bit differently, and even the way that fashion is being and crafts are being bought and the way they're being seen on, out there in the shops is all very digital. The way you purchase, there's going to be 3D mirrors and things you can have in your house. So there's Erica.
Yeah.
So she can probably talk a bit more about education, but
Yeah.
it's very much changing. It's not the same before. You have to gather new skills in order to keep up. Even those who are educated, have multiple degrees like I do, you have to now kind of go back to zero in some ways and relearn how things are moving for the next 50 years, or even maybe even faster than that, 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years, I would say. Yeah.
But maybe Erica can jump in if you're comfortable to speak, talking about the way education is moving, or maybe you can phrase it again, Trish.
Oh, Erica, she is. Yeah. So we are talking about what you feel like education will be like in the next in the future. we'd had touched on a little bit of, you know, colonialism. We'd touched on a little bit about perceived value in the global South. But just talking now a little bit about education, but please introduce yourself as well, Erica.
You're muted, by the way. Gift doesn't really.
Yeah, I can't hear her.
Still muted.
She is still muted.
Oh, she can't unmute herself.
Oh no.
She couldn't read. Oh, I don't know if she can speak, so she can't unmute herself.
Oh no.
Oh,
Unable to unmute. Yeah, there's been.
But I always say to everybody, you know, if you're here, definitely check out the work that Erica's done. I've learned a lot, a better understanding, especially the histories. And Erica's one who has documented a lot of the work or histories around African fashion, African textiles. Yes, a lot to do South Africa, but generally an overview of the continent wide, and just the importance of having this as research and as information that people can learn and use for their own research, and make sure that we're not just going by a colonialist perspective of, you know, the histories of fashion in Africa or textiles in Africa, but that everybody can tap into what actually has happened and bring their own perspective as well by creating new things, researching new things. But it's all been documented, archived. I don't know if she's done some exhibitions and things like that. There's loads of things. There's just loads of things happening now, which I think is really, 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 really great. And I think education is something where it's not just in the schools and the universities. It's something where, yes, you can go into Wikipedia, I guess, and learn from things there, but also go out and travel. There's a lot more people traveling to places they may not usually have gone to for holidays, and you travel around the African continent or throughout Asia and just learning more. And that's becoming part of the importance of education, is going to new spaces, speaking to people and learning a bit more about things. I don't know if she's saying, or she's not typing anymore. But
okay.
Yeah,
I mean, I just wanting to backtrack a little bit about, you know, when you just mentioned AI, all of that technology, digital transformation, it is, there's a little bit of inequity going on there, because, you know, not every, you know, the continents in the global South don't necessarily have access to all of that going forward. You know, just basic technology, and it's sometimes hard for many universities. Friend Yvonne, you know, they've just built a creative university in Ghana. There is, but still, it's just really, really hard to for them to have access to all of that in the same way that, say, a college in London has, or, you know, a college in New York.
Again, it's a round peg, it's the square peg in the round hole, and I think maybe it's not meant to be like that there. Maybe it's meant to, maybe that's how, it's a whole them and us. That's what you should be doing in order to move forward. You should be using these tools, materials. Their industry is not set up exactly the same way as it is, you know, in the West. Is maybe tapping into the histories, the stories of textiles, you know, the way things are used and natural resources, that would mean that they can continue to keep the land alive and not be happening, you know, because remember the West is doing things differently because of the problems that has been caused, trying to find technological solutions to change or counteract the problems that have been made by the global West. Whereas in maybe within those countries or regions like Africa or South Asia, for example, it may be that the natural way, the craft route is the solution, because that will solve, well, so it's just a natural solution. And I think it is maybe the better way to go. So rather than trying to chase the other, being the US or Europe or whatever, the way they're doing things, which is just, you know, a solution for the problems that have been caused. Maybe it's like looking at what do we have here where we are in African countries, Asian countries, South America, wherever, and just keeping those things alive. Like going back to basics or going back to traditional ways of doing things. And I think that may be where we should be heading, back to the traditional, rather than trying to leap forward to where we think things, and building rockets and blowing up rockets in the sky.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it speaks to this
as people do.
this thing to degrowth, which I usually like to say responsible growth, basically, that takes into account everything that you do. So another question I had was based around design. So I talk to my students a lot about designing with intention, meaning that they sort of think about, you know, when you're just making more stuff, putting more stuff out there, there is a reason why. And so you're more intentional about the materials you use. You're also more intentional about the end of life of the product that you have. So just, you know, how do you think design will kind of change in the next, so I'm saying 10, I don't want to say 50 years, in the next 5 years, basically, because, you know, we're having to incorporate, my students actually was telling me, yeah, it's so different for them. When I went to college, you just designed and were creative, but now they feel like they have the burden of cleaning up our mess, the mess of the previous generations, and they don't feel this. I feel guilty if I'm sort of just creating for no reason. It's just a different kind of mindset that they have to have. So I just wanted your perspective on, you know, how you feel like design and curriculums should change, you know, in general in education around sustainability, circularity, biomimicry, you know, all of those kind of concepts that lead to kind of a more responsible kind of fashion industry.
I think it's encouraging people to be more thoughtful designers. Like I said, designing with intention. Like, what does it actually mean? Because that's what design actually is. It's supposed to be, okay, I want to sit on the floor, but I don't want to sit right on the floor. So I create a chair, but you don't call it a chair. You just create something that you can put your bum on.
Yeah.
And then you build a chair, and okay, it needs legs, or I want mine to swivel, so I need to be able to turn that way and this way. And so design is actually like solutions. You know, the fashion, because there's design and there's dress and there's fashion, there's costumes, there's all kinds of different terminologies, I guess. And then, so when you're designing, you're supposed to be creating a solution to something. Like you create a particular pair, you know, underwear for a solution. You create shoes to do something, Wellington boots to counteract, you know, a problem. But now then it just became a point people, they just design our creativity, haute couture, etc. And I think that will still be existing within, because especially because we're in the world of social media, so that kind of fabulous fashion Met Gala, all of these pieces that you really don't need, they're going to be worn once and then that's it. You know, those things will still be happening because of the world of social media that we are in. But then I think within the general education, the ones which are universities that are a bit more thinking about sustainability, it's going to be teaching people, you know, considered ways of doing it, and you know, designing using these modern tools in order to get rid of the waste, in order to, you know, your pattern carton zero waste, as we were talking about earlier, and you know, just having a reason for it, and maybe working with communities that we were talking about earlier, working, co-creating with artisans and so forth, so we can tap into natural ways of doing things and more thoughtful ways of doing things. So I think it's going to really depend on the universities. So you may have some which are going to still want to be like the Met Gala designers and, you know, social media, and then there'll be those that are wanting to be more considerate. I think that time is running out.
So we are running out of time. So well, just wanted to thank Jackie. I'm so sorry that we couldn't hear from Erica, but please check out the work that she does. The African Fashion Research Institute is amazing. We'll have you back again, definitely, Erica. So we're going to head back into the main room for some conclusions. For those of you who are signing off, thank you so much again for being guests and being here. And we will see you soon.
Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.